All right, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Agency Freedom Podcast. We help insurance professionals move from captivity to freedom. Welcome to those of you watching on our YouTube channel and everyone out there in traditional podcast land. We will jump right to it because we've got a packed episode because my guest is a heavy hitter and has a lot of time spent in front of the camera as well. Him and his colleagues, his partners in crime, put out a ton of content, have their own podcast. So we're just going to get right to it. I have the privilege of talking with Mr. Brett Young, one of the co-founders of Erb and Young in the great state of Florida. Brett, how's it going, man?
Oh man, it's fantastic, man. It's good to see your voice. It's actually good to see your face, your voice, the whole studio behind you. I know you've been busy renovating, so man, it's just
Yep.
trying to keep up with you, man.
Man, like I said right before we started recording, I am a simple man. I don't have many tricks up my sleeve, but I love an unfair advantage. And you're looking at one of them back there. We call this the lounge. And on the other side of the wall is the studio, which isn't quite ready yet. But thank you for your kind words. I really appreciate it. Enough about me. I want to hear about you, Mr. Brett Young, you handsome devil. How long did it take you being a magazine cover model before you started insurance? You are a good-looking dude, my man.
Thanks, man.
No,
Appreciate that.
what?
It's
How did you
modeling
find
on the side, you make
insurance
some
here?
extra money.
Dude, I'm
So
telling you,
man,
like,
so how
if
did I get?
how do the women in Florida handle themselves with you being happily married and off the market?
If only I was that lucky 15 years ago, man.
I'm
So
telling you. So
yeah,
insurance,
but
how in the
no,
world did you find yourself to this wonderful industry that you and I both call home?
yeah, thanks, man. I think it's like all of us on accident. I came to the business from a different approach, from a different perspective. I was in college at the time. I was very entrepreneurial. I was doing a lot of different businesses. Many of them were businesses that weren't making money, businesses that I was excited about, starting businesses, never doing anything with them. I think at the time I had four different types of businesses that I was working. One of them was an eBay business, and I got introduced to the concept of network marketing.
Mm,
I got interested in the concept of network marketing with my business partner, who is now Rod Erb, one of them, and ended up meeting some incredible mentors in that space who are some of the best in the world. Learned a ton during that time from them, mentored under some of the best, some of them which are the likes of Jeff Olson. He's built $2 billion sales organizations. He's read the Slide Edge. He's authored the book called The Slide Edge. Many people have probably read it,
hmm
and got to learn from a lot of great people in that business about how to lead a voluntary army and how to team build. And so I fell in love with those concepts, fell in love with culture, fell in love with driving human behavior through, a positive feedback loop. And it changed my life, made me excited about the business world, which I wasn't before. And it gave me a new enthusiasm about kind of what the big bad world after college looked like. And so we built that business for about 5 years and decided that the price point was really low. It was a financial services product. It was in the insurance space. You had to have a license for it. And I ended up getting into the employee benefits at the tail end of that career, sold it to different corporate company benefits. But the price point was pretty relatively small. And so to scale a big income and to scale a business to provide opportunity for other people, it just seemed like that was going to be a difficult thing to do sustainably.
hmm
But I love the concepts. I love the idea. I love the product, but I needed a new vehicle in order to do that too. So we were looking for a while on what the next business is to kind of apply these same things because we did pretty well in that business. And I met a guy. Guy had gotten out of the paper business, was an executive, got into the property and casualty insurance space,
mm
and he spent 2.5 hours with me. He had became a partner at this firm here in town. He has since then exited. They had a pretty large agency, 5 or 6 million in revenue, and he had told me everything there was to know about the insurance business. And one of my questions to him was, "What does your day look like? Not what you do for a living. Not how much money you make. Like, what does your Tuesday look like?" Which was great advice that my dad gave me in college for anybody that you're trying to figure out what you want to do. And he gave me this really cool answer that was balanced and that was fair and that was fun and it was relationship based and it was connection and community and team. And I was like, man, this is it. this is it. It's got an escalating price point. You can do something small, or you can do largest commercial, as big of a price point as you want, which is exactly what we were looking for. The product that we had been marketing was a push-through product, meaning we had to push it into the marketplace. People weren't going out to purchase it. They didn't necessarily know they needed it, but once they realized what it was, they're like, oh, well, that makes sense.
Mm.
But in order to do that, you have to educate people, and you have to actually, the real value of that business is the sales force, because without the sales force, that product's not going to move. Whereas in pull through marketing, I learned through this process of learning this, was pull through marketing is I can hold up a can of Coke and everybody's going to go buy the can of Coke. It pulls people into distribution. It has branding, and the property and casualty space was so different because everyone had to buy it. They had to buy it every single year, and you knew when they bought it because there was an X date attached to it. And so those components, coupled with the ability to take the team building approach that we had learned in the network marketing space and combine that together, was the birth of what you see Erb and Young today.
Mm. No, I can get that from what I see from you guys in your content, the way that you position yourselves in the marketplace. It feels very familiar because that's what we're doing at Riskwell, and I think there's a lot of similar DNA
That's
in the
cool.
way that Urban Young does things. It feels known because I it was a compliment earlier this week. I think it was someone said in the comment section regarding this new office is like, so you're basically a media company that happens to sell insurance. I was like, yeah, actually, that's not a bad way of looking at it. The
That's cool.
insurance purchase at Riskwell is almost superfluous. It comes after getting to know someone, understanding their problems and their business and whatever they're looking for, networking in a significant way. Everything I see from Urban Young is basically the same thing. Like you guys have built a really strong team, a strong culture, people that seem to be bought in. Like I see your retreat pictures and stuff around the office, and I see a bunch of like genuine smiles and people that enjoy each other's company. And
Yeah.
that is the most important thing. That is the hardest thing. And it seems like you guys have done a phenomenal job taking those network marketing and the pieces that came before you were an insurance agency and translated that to this industry really well, man. Bravo.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Some of those concepts, they just get lost in traditional business.
Mm-hmm.
We as leaders believe that if we pay somebody a paycheck, they should just show up and do their job. And there's a lot of talk in regards to this, the job force being entitled. But I think there are leaders in our business that are entitled. They just think they're entitled for people to show up and do their all,
Yeah.
and that's not how it works. Like they're not there to build your business. They're there to build their career.
Yep.
They're there to realize their dreams. They're there to put the brick in their wall, not yours. And so the filter in which that we look at things, I think, distorts the reality of what it actually is, and that is that your business and whatever that is that you sell and whatever problem you solve is there to support the team
Yeah.
first. And if you can support them realizing what's important to them, then you get what's left over. And right, Zig Ziglar says if we help enough people get what they want, we'll have everything that we want, right? But that is easier said on a quote in your office than it is in practice, right? In practice, that means you eat last. In practice, that means you take profit last. In practice, that means you don't get to have what you want unless you do everything to make sure that they succeed. And
Yep.
these simple, basic, fundamental, you know, psychological behavior triggers that are so vital and important to just the vitality and fulfillment of other people when they're working in an environment is just lost because we think, well, if we give them enough benefits and paycheck, well, then they're going to come on to work and they should do exactly what we ask them to do, exactly the way that we want it done. And that perspective was something that when I was in the workforce, looking for the next thing, I was extremely frustrated. I was very demotivated. I felt as if I didn't belong. And so the lack of community and the lack of caring, the lack of empathy from the workforce is something I think a lot of young people are frustrated with. I think it's a lot of, when I was through my journey, I felt like I thought I was lazy.
Mm.
My parents, the society, all these outside pressures basically said that I just was lazy. Well, I wasn't lazy. I had multiple different businesses. I had hustles. They were just They were on what I wanted. They were going after, I didn't know this at the time, but they were pursuing my dreams and what I was looking for. This other avenue just wasn't able to give it to me. And because of that, and because I wasn't getting that feedback loop, I wasn't motivated to be my best version of myself. And when somebody introduced me to these concepts that I can build whatever I want as long as I become more, I can earn more, and that the sky's the limit as long as I engage in the right vehicle, all of a sudden I'm like, well, this is worth it. Okay, now this makes sense. Like let's run. This is cool. And so at Erb and Young, this has become organic, just part of the culture because this is what we wanted. Like that's what we were looking for. And it comes with building it for yourself first and it working to where it gives you those things, and then you have the ability to turn around and say, hey, I can offer this as an opportunity to fill the need of maybe somebody else who was in the same spot that I was. And so I think the energy that you feel, which I'm super grateful for, that I appreciate that, and it's not without challenge. I mean, trust me, it's there's enough of that to go around, that's for sure.
Hmm.
But I
You
do
mean you have
believe people.
challenges, Brett? You're not
Yeah.
just riding the gravy train every single day? Come
Ugh.
on, man.
Yeah, right, exactly. I would love the
Oh,
gravy
man.
train. That would be amazing.
So
But yeah, I mean,
can I
it's
ask a
it's
couple of
it's
questions specific about your workforce? Because this is something that I know you and I both care very deeply about. We read a lot of books on the subject. I've seen enough of your podcast and your content to know that you care very deeply about the right people in the right seats kind of
mm,
concept. And it's incredibly difficult to find people that care like an owner cares. Having the
sure.
people that are becoming personally invested in the agency. How do
Yep.
you find these people historically? Are they just grassroots hires that you pick up at the Starbucks down the street, or a friend of a friend, or homegrown talent of some kind? Are you going out and using headhunters or staffing firms? You know, it
Yeah.
looks like you guys have an amazing team that's engaged, that is plugged in. Obviously, you're going to have some challenges because we're all human beings after all, but
Sure.
it appears like you guys are doing the staffing and team building much better than most.
Well, I appreciate that. I feel like every problem you solve, there's three new ones, so it's a good thing. But couple good questions. Number one, I'd love to touch about the tactical of like if you're listening to this, how do I find talent?
Yep.
Where's the best places to look? What's the best way to attract? What's the best way to retain? We'll get into that. As far as um, as far as the team members that have come to get them to care like an owner, I don't think you're ever going to get somebody to care like an owner.
Yeah.
So I don't
I just mean like
expect.
similar, you know what I mean? Like they're not just coming
Sure,
to work. It's a job. Well, I'm going to
sure.
work right now. You know, like
Yep. But
they
again,
care.
100%. And so again, I don't want to downgrade the importance of that question. However, I do want to frame it properly for the listener to say, if you set an expectation that people are going to put in the amount of work that you're putting in and care the way you care, you're just setting yourself up for a disappointment in people. And by the way, if you're in leadership, welcome to the club. You just get disappointed with people. It's challenging. It's hard not to have expectations, but having the proper ones I've found is very important because they're not supposed to, and they're not going to.
Yep.
However, if you can get them to take ownership on their careers the way that you take ownership in your business,
Mm,
you have something very, very special.
love that.
Now you're tapping into the human heart. Now you're tapping into what's in it for me. And that so having that frame, if we open that door and go down that hallway, what I would ask the listener to consider would be that people don't, from my experience, people don't realize that they're in a lot more control of their lives than they think they are. They'll come to your organization or they'll come to a new opportunity and they've tried three things and they haven't worked. They've had two careers that they fizzled out. Maybe they got let go from one. Maybe they got burnout on the other one. Maybe something bad happened with their last boss. They come from, they just had a divorce in their life. They're starting. They have a new chapter. a lot of us and most of us are coming to a new opportunity because of a life change, and there's trauma involved with that. Okay. People don't just wake up one day and make a choice to change careers. They don't. It's usually because something happened in their life that has caused a trigger. Most of the time, that trigger is trauma. So if we understand where people are coming from, usually they're in survival mode. They're not in abundance mode. They're in survival mode. And so they believe that this, most of the time what I see is people think that their life is being dictated to them instead of living from a place of power that I can create whatever I want. And that is the first shift that, in my opinion, if you get that right, if you spend 90% on that, everything else comes easy, because now you can create, uh, individuals that are empowered, who believe that they're creators. And I believe we're all meant to be creators and we're all powerful, but we just don't realize it. We don't know it. So for us, that's personal development. And that happened through somebody giving me a book. And I know Taylor and Rod had their own experiences at very similar times, but I was looking for that. I was like, I didn't feel empowered. I felt like my life was being dictated to. I didn't have hope for the future. I didn't feel like I could create whatever I wanted. And somebody gave me a copy of The Slight Edge, and it changed my life. And I was the guy that never read any books, and now I read, 20 books a year. I can't get enough, and I love to grow. And I'm a completely different person that person was back then. Now, why does that shift occur? Because I made the connection that that type of development and that type of training and that type of installing of a new program allows me to become a different person. And that becoming of that new person allows me to have this unlimited opportunity and potential to take ownership over my life. And that is what we teach at Erb and Young. So like a lot of different agencies that I see, they do a great job with professional development, how to be a great insurance agent. I'm not kidding you, man. We spend probably 10% of our time on how to be a good insurance agent. We spend 90% of our time on how to be an epic, awesome human being, because that is the source where all this stuff comes from, right? Most of sales has to do with your likability, has to do with your attraction as a human. It has very little to do with what coverage language and policy information. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just saying for us, if I'm looking to unlock somebody's future potential, I'm going to make a much bigger emphasis on their personal development than I am on their professional development. The way that they handle their emotional intelligence, the way that they approach their attitude on a daily basis, what type of habits they're putting in their life to create sustainability. There are just these certain skill sets that if you have really, really good parents, which a lot of us, that's challenging, right? Like we were raised by imperfect human beings, like that's difficult. Then you may have gotten things, but a lot of us never got all this stuff. A lot of us didn't get all these skill sets, and we get out into the real world and we just expect to have it. So for us, we've spent a lot of time on giving people a different perspective on the tools that are available for them to take control back over their life, for them to be empowered instead of dictated to. So for us, that's why personal development is to the core of our system. It's to the core of our structure. And we do that a couple ways. When you said your retreats, our annual leadership summit, we get away for 3 days and we do an intense boot camp of personal and professional development and community and cohesion and a lot of different breakouts. We have an event, we have a summer bash that we do every year. That's a semi-annual event. We do quarterly culture events. We have a weekly personal development call that we've been running for 15 years, where everybody leads a call and they get on and we talk about a chapter a week. So we're going through books together, and slowly over time you start to reprogram to say, man, if I surround myself with the right people, if I consume the right information, and I do this for a long period of time with a good attitude, all of a sudden my life can start to pivot and change. And
Yep.
now you're giving people the tools to have control of their own life instead of just dictating, how it should be. So that's been a huge, huge help for us in regards to finding people that want to, take ownership over the business.
It is absolutely no surprise why you guys have had the success that you've had over the years with monologues like that, because that means that Erb and Young has a leader, probably three leaders that are completely dialed in and get it. Because I mean, at a certain point, you and I, as co-founders, or in this case, as just founder, we run out of hours. And in order for us to continue to grow and achieve more, we realize pretty early on that we
Yeah.
have to have other people running alongside of us that we can cast a vision that they buy into and say, hey,
Yeah.
you know what? I'd like for that to be my career. That sounds like fun. Let's do it. And then
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
people help build the empire. You and I and the freedom jumpers out there listening to this episode, you can't build much of an empire by yourself. Like if you're building the
Right.
empire by yourself, it's a pretty lame empire. Let's be real here, folks. The solo
Yeah.
operators out there, you can't build much by yourself. And so many of the people that I talk to that are solo operators, they're burned. Like you said, the trauma. There's a bunch of solo operators out there that have trauma from failed employee stuff in the past, and they're scared to hire again because they've been burned and someone's taken advantage of their kindness or generosity or whatever, and they're
Yeah.
humming along in their version of good enough rather than risking being burned again by going out and hiring someone. So it's an interesting dichotomy with the whole employee thing because yeah, for sure, the employee side of the equation is essential and it's a core part of building a strong business. But
Mhm.
the hiring manager, the founder that's writing those paychecks, there's a lot that goes into that too, man. The psychology
So
of leadership as it pertains to the leader who's in charge of growing and developing a team. That is something that we haven't really talked much about in this podcast, but I sure think about it a lot, read a lot of books about it. You really just encapsulated it very nicely there, man. I love it. Um, Quick question. You and I are both
it
readers. You probably have an opinion on this. I'm undecided. When you say you read 20 books, what happens if you read the same book 4 times in a year, cover to cover? Because last year, I camped
that's
out
cool.
so hard on it started I ran the trilogy backwards. I was foolish. I started with 10x is easier than 2x, and then went to the
Mm.
gap and the gain, and then went to who not how. And I was like, wait a second, who not how's first, the gap and the gain is second, 10x is easier than 2x is third. James, you read them
That's cool.
backwards, you idiot. So what's your take, my man? If you read the same book 3 times, is that 3 books or is that 1 book?
I think it's 3 books, and that's a funny point actually, because I've read The Slight Edge probably 6 times, but we we all learn a couple different ways, and I learned this from Jeff, which was we have learned knowledge, which is our book knowledge.
Yep.
We have activity knowledge, which is we go in, we do the thing. Then we go back to the learned knowledge and we learn it again. And then we go and we do the activity and we toggle back and forth between these two things.
Yep.
You can go read a book this year. Go do the activity for a year. I promise you, in 12 months, if you've engaged in the activity, you go back and read the same book, it will sound different. It will be as if there was a different author. You will notice things that you never noticed. It will make sense to you in ways that it never made sense to you before. So much of us, we just pick up one book, we go do the activity, and then we're on to the next thing. Like coming back to books in different seasons of your career, I think is extremely important because it's like the Bible, right? We don't just read the Bible one time and we're done with it. We go, oh, we got that. We
Yep.
come back to it. It's a study manual, right? It gives us perspective. And after we've gone through different seasons of activity, the learn knowledge that we gain, and we have different contexts, we have different perspectives. So I think that's a cheat code, honestly. I mean, I think coming back to books that you love, I think of Grow Rich. I've read it multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great book and it never gets old. And it always makes more sense to me once I've gained more experience in my life. So I actually think that's a hack. I'd love to go back and read more books. I think it would be healthy because the ones that I have done it, I feel like they wrote it. I feel like it's a different version.
Yeah. What has piqued your curiosity right now? Let me just pivot hard in that different direction. You and I could talk about 10 different topics in this podcast, and talk shop and industry stuff or whatever. I always love to ask this question. What has your interest right now? What are you focusing on? What are you curious about? Studying, trying to improve, whatever direction you want to take that answer in.
Surrender. I'm heavily engulfed into a lot of philosophy right now,
Mm-hmm.
which you may seem it doesn't have to do with business, but I think it has everything to do with business. I'm reading Meditations right now by Marcus Aurelius,
Oh,
which was almost
oh,
2,000
baby,
years ago.
warn me before you come in
Um,
hard like that. Come on now.
yeah,
Ooh,
and you just
that's a
listen
good
to
one.
his diaries. And for those of the listeners, it's his diaries that it was one of the most beloved emperors of the Roman Empire. I think it was like 170 AD, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're reading the wisdom of himself speaking to himself about anger and how it's a compulsive, it's a uh, compulsive spasm, right? And he's talking about his grip on trying to control things and his want to surrender to, what is going to be. And I think in my business career right now, I think so much, there's just so many things going on, there's so much happening, and there's so much that you don't have control of.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as a when you start building you go from it's just you, then you go to a smaller business, then you get a little bigger, and then you start adding some offices. There's just so much going on all the time. And if you carry the weight of all this shit going on all the time, it becomes a not a fun life to live. It's like
Yep.
it's in completely conflict with why you started the business. You started the business to have freedom. You started the business to give yourself a better life. You started this just to give this abundance. And what ends up happening is like you carry it and you take it home with you, and you're trying to solve every problem at night when your head hits the pillow and your mind won't stop racing. And so there was a point in my career when I was, and I say but it was us, the three of us, where it was just I was living off faith. I didn't know exactly how it was going to work out, but I knew it was going to work out. And I got up every day, my head, my feet hit the ground, and I just went to work. And I knew that,
Yep.
I knew that the divine had me, and I knew that it was going to be okay. I could see the end, but I couldn't see the trail. And along the way, you start to learn some things and you start to understand how this thing works. And then for me, I've realized that I grip things, and I try to control things, and I try to have to figure out every single possible scenario and how it's going to be. And the idea and concept of surrendering to and trusting and having this lightness about enjoying the process of not knowing all the time is something that I'm heavy deep in work with. I have a business coach and a personal coach that helps me with this, and that's something we're studying really intensely right now. Because at the end of the day, what is success without fulfillment, man? Like, what is success if you have all this stress in your life? And stress is just mismanagement of pressure,
Yep.
right? It's not needed. It's made up. And so I feel like this is these concepts of personal development that I think are so translatable to running an insurance agency at a high level, or any business for that matter. But I don't hear a lot of people talk about it. I hear a lot of us try to figure out how to make a better process and streamline efficiencies, and how do we use Zaps better with Zapier, and all these things that are cool and they're fun. But at the end of the day, like, all those things change. They come, they go, everything, evolves. But what's fundamental to the core concept of building anything great is emotional EQ, understanding yourself, managing pressure, you know, uh, empathy and understanding of people, and managing this crazy life of the ups and the downs, and trying to get as much fulfillment out of it. So, yeah, that's a lot of that's a lot of very personal
Man,
stuff right there. But there you go.
I have been on a kick. And I have to give credit to Ryan Hanley. It started about 2.5 years ago. Ryan was talking about this book, The Obstacle is the Way. And at that point, I had never read anything from Ryan Holiday, and read The Obstacle is the Way. And then, of course, 4 or 5 other books that Ryan Holiday put out. And then stumbled on
Yeah,
the Daily Stoic, the
yeah,
blog,
great book.
and just the newsletter, like once a day email that comes out, and just like fell in love with this Stoic philosophy, and realizing how beneficial that stuff is when you merge that with a solid faith background in the context of being an
Yeah,
entrepreneur. It's like,
yeah,
oh man, this
yeah.
is good stuff. And I don't know if you have had the full on conniption that I had when I did a little bit of digging in history, and realized that Seneca, one of the most popular Stoic philosophers ever, was in Rome in the court of Nero at the same time the Apostle Paul from the Bible was in Rome in the court of Nero. When I
Crazy.
realized, it's like, dude, there's a really good possibility that Seneca and Paul were buddies, that they hung out, like they would just sit around in the court of Nero and talk shop. It was like, like two different worlds in my brain merging. It's like, whoa.
So cool.
It's like to
Yeah.
have been, it's like that fly on the wall thing where Tolkien and C.S. Lewis were best friends. Like they talked about stuff all the time in their, sipping whiskey or bourbon or whatever it was, where, T.R. Tolkien like introduced atheist C.S. Lewis to the gospel, and all of the stuff that C.S. Lewis ended up doing is like, can I just be in the room when Tolkien, writer of one of the most amazing books ever of human history, of The Lord of the Rings, and C.S. Lewis, writer of several of the most amazing books, like, I won't say a word. I won't open my mouth. I
Yeah.
just want to sit there and listen to the back and forth. It's like Seneca and Paul, Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. It's like, how did God allow two icons to be in the same place at the same time, interacting together? It's like, whoa. Sorry, I know that's a
Yeah.
totally tangent nerd
forget.
out thing, but
Yeah.
I mean,
It's beautiful though, because I mean it's modeling, right? The other component of learn knowledge, activity knowledge. It's modeling knowledge. There are people who, these are real people who worked or walked the earth, and they have the same challenges you did, if not way bigger. They dealt with the same insecurities.
yeah,
They dealt with the same pressures. They dealt with the same lack of belief. And so their experience is
yeah,
invaluable to getting the most out of this experience. Whether you're building an agency, you're building a marriage, you're building your life. It's just, it's so rich. It's so rich, and it's such a deep well to pull from. I just regret that, won't live long enough to be able to read all the books on the shelves. But
well,
I agree with you.
it
It's a
makes me
blueprint
think of Florida and how unfair it is that one state gets to have Erb and Young and Billy Wagner and Ciara Gravier and Michelle Mosher and David Carruthers, and was like, good Lord, you greedy state. Can you share the love with some of these heavy hitters? Other states need great agents too. Come on, Florida. Quit being so greedy.
That's funny. I love that. That's funny. Well, those are good. That's a good company, and I appreciate being mentioned with all those
Oh,
great
it was
people.
not
So
lost on me. All these pictures that Carruthers was dropping of the InsureCon planning session. I'm like, I know where Brandon Smith came from. I know where Nick Ayers came from. They got on planes. All these other people are Florida agents. They're all local. I was like, oh, geography wins that one, buddy. Awesome.
that's
I
funny,
cannot
man.
wait. I cannot wait to see InsureCon. That is going. The word epic is so overused. It really is overused. Oh, that was epic. No, it was not epic. It was mildly exciting. Stop it. But in this case, epic is definitely an appropriate word, because I have a feeling, knowing Carruthers and knowing the people in that room, you guys are going to have some tricks up the sleeve that people have no idea. They're not even capable of thinking along the lines of some of the stuff you guys are going to be doing.
It's going to be a very impactful event, but I would say an experience is a better
Yeah.
word for it. So, and it will be different, and it will be
Are
refreshing,
there
and it
dates
will
yet?
be
I
fun.
don't know if I've heard that.
There's a couple being kicked around, but I think I'll wait for the master
Oh no,
promoter to
yeah, for
get those
sure.
out.
I didn't remember if Carruthers had said anything about firm dates yet. I just know that it's sometime in the first half of 2025.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I think that's
I
exactly
won't
what he's
ask you
put out.
to say anything else, because I know you're not the official spokesperson of that little circus. So
Yeah, no,
what?
I'm excited to be involved with it. So it's
Let's
great.
talk about Florida, because now that we gave Florida a hard time for being greedy, have a handy little whoosh button, so we're changing the subject here. You have your principal office in Orlando, right?
Yes, that's where I am right now.
Okay,
Yep.
sweet. Orlando's an amazing place to visit, really hard place to write insurance. How have you guys, you have 7 locations in the state of Florida. You have built this insurance empire in arguably the hardest state in the country to do insurance. I know California and Texas and maybe New York, maybe Massachusetts, not really though, not really Mass, sorry. Maybe other states have a claim. Maybe Colorado with all their fire line stuff and all their elevation and the weirdness in the western 2/3 of the state. But I think everybody can agree that Florida is a super, super hard place to do insurance. This is where carriers go to die. I'm looking at you, UPC, and all the others that have gone into receivership and gone belly up. Thank you for making me rewrite all of those policies, UPC. Good
Right.
riddance. Ugh. How in
Right.
the world does Erb and Young thrive in such a difficult state? Let's talk shop, operations,
Yeah.
process,
Uh,
workflow. What is the sauce that you guys are doing to have so much success in such a hard place to write insurance?
oh man, I'm humbled by that. I think the first thing is you just know what you know, and you normalize yourself to whatever you're doing, and then you get to the next level. So I don't necessarily know how to answer that, but I'll give you maybe some things that I think might be on the right track. So for us, number one, um, we're heavily engaged in teaching our agents to be marketers first, insurance agents second. Um, so new business is just, it's the lifeblood, right? Like, so we have always been extremely heavily focused on reinvesting into our sales infrastructure. We always hire before we're ready, and we're consistently adding pieces to the sales infrastructure. Now that comes with a cost. It puts a heavy burden on our service team, and there have been so many times when we have almost broke our infrastructure and it's just crisis mode. And so, however, that's the game that we decided to sign up for. So sales velocity is something that we look at extremely closely to make sure, and growth is something that we're obsessive about. So I think that is a mindset. I think that is a philosophy. I think that is the lens in which we're recruiting from. So for the most part, in the beginning, we were recruiting heavily for individuals that wanted to be in the sales game. They would learn service, they would learn the business, and then we would move them to sales, right? And so because that's what they wanted, that's why they came into the insurance business. So we were heavily focused on getting people to get what they want. And in doing that, what would end up happening is we would rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And all of a sudden we woke up and we had 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people in a sales seat. And you could start doing some really big numbers if you have enough good people in seats that they're on offense. Our agents don't our agents that are involved with marketing and sales do not do any service. So we're not one of those agencies where you're doing sales and service. It's very isolated in regards to what you do all the way through the sales process till you hit the bind button. Our agents do our new business underwriting, which is a big deal in Florida because there's a lot of it. A lot of stuff comes back for post binding underwriting stuff. And then after that, it's the service team. The service team's taking it over from there, and it gives us the ability to stay on offense. So I think that is a thing that's helped us a lot to make sure that we're giving producers the space that they need in order to write a good amount of volume, but also go out and create new opportunities. Secondly, our lead gen model is we are a referral based business building organization, meaning we are in the business of setting up referral partners. I mean, so we work on probably anywhere from 400 to 500 closings a month. And those are individual loan officers, processors, real estate agents, people in the community that we have built business with over the last decade who continue to use us for their closings. And we do a great job, and we make sure we're in front of them and they know that we appreciate them and we take care of their clients. As basic as it gets. So, and our entire lead gen model is built around making sure the agents know how to do that. So that is what's allowed us to kind of, scale, if you will, that and having the right type of talent, and then making sure that that talent is focused on the activities that move the needle, which is new business. As far as processes is concerned, we're in the process of building out HubSpot right now. We just moved all of our agents, our sales team, out of our AMS, and we have been in strictly a CRM for about a year now. And it's obviously, as close to enterprise level as you can get. That's strictly built for our processes, which has been amazing, which has been a huge shift for us. We've seen a big lift from that. However, it's been a huge endeavor. But in the beginning of the game, for us, it was choppy. Like there was a lot of, we all use these different technologies, and we got 15 windows up at one time, and we're using all this tech to kind of band-aid everything together and duct tape things, and I think one of the things that was really healthy for us is we have open work environments. Nobody has closed offices, and so I've never had a closed office in my entire career. I still don't have a closed office, still to this day, with 44 team members. And I think that collaboration allows for a better training and development environment. At some point, at scale, right? We will need to be able to train somebody the same way when they're by themselves is when they're in a pit. But when they're in a pit and they can hear everybody on the phone, they can see how they move the mouse, they can see where they put their windows, they can see how they operate. There's just this exponential learning that happens from, if you have 5 people learning from one mistake, you just had 5 mistakes that everybody learned from. And if you have one success with 6 people just had a success that they're learning from. So for us, I think that type of environment has been a cheat code. It's allowed us to really, if one person's doing well, inevitably 4, 5, 6 people in that room start to pick up on that and they start to collaborate. And there's a lot of trust that's built with those team members. Since culture is, and the team building aspect is the lifeblood and the foundation of our structure. Usually these people like each other a lot and they're usually
Yeah.
friends. And if they're struggling with something or they're doing well with something, it's not an environment where if somebody's doing really well, they don't want to tell the other agents because they don't want them to know what they're doing. It really is a collaborative environment. And the fact that they're open offices, I think, has been a big help, for getting people up to speed faster.
Love it. You kind of tiptoed into my last question before I hand you the mic, and you can finish on whatever you want to land our plane together. What are two pieces of tech or two vendors that you guys absolutely cannot live without at Urban Young? Sounds like HubSpot's one of
Wow,
them.
it's definitely HubSpot, which that's a learned relationship because that's not easy.
No,
But
they're as complicated as Salesforce to wrap your arms around.
yeah, it's been a process, but that's one definitely. And then number two, man, a tech.
Or a vendor. It doesn't have to be tech.
Yeah, you know, I love Capital Premium Finance for a vendor. Um, the Gabrielsons have been incredible to us. I've learned so much from them as entrepreneurs and as business people and as friends. They are my favorite vendor, if you call that a partner. I just love them dearly, and they've been amazing. As far as another piece of technology, I think Quote Rush is our rater and what we use to do homeowners insurance, especially in
Mhm.
Florida. Some of these raters just don't work. And so, one of the coolest things is we got that piece of technology from somebody who came to our office and said, "Hey, you guys need to look at this." And so the other thing that's cool is almost every innovation, every piece of technology that we use, every process has come from a team member. It's not like Brett, Rod, and Taylor are coming up with these awesome processes and are orchestrating Urban Young to be what it is. It's really not. It really has to do with people that are in the field doing the thing that are giving really good feedback. And we go, well, that makes sense. Like, let's do that. And so, Quote Rush was one of those things we moved away from years ago. And it's been very helpful to ensure that we get the accurate rates that we need to get in a market that's so volatile and that's changing all the time. Ballpark estimates based upon, uh, you know, raters that don't pull real data into the system. It's just very difficult in Florida because you just have
Yeah,
inaccuracies and it's just so volatile. So I think that would be probably the one I picked. That was a pretty big game changer for us.
love it. Man, I'm gonna hand you the mic. Anything we haven't covered that you wanted to get into? Any final thoughts as we land the plane together?
Man, I just appreciate being on. Number one, I appreciate the ability to be able to tell our story. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to my partners. I think what we do, just like a lot of people that listen to this, I think what we do matters, and I think it makes a big impact in people's lives if we allow it to. So I just want to encourage someone, whether you're looking to get in the business, whether you're a captive potentially going to move to the independent side, whether you are a solopreneur right now and you're looking to make those next hires. I just would encourage you that uh, this business, man, it's just a fun business if you get to the point where you have some leverage. And leverage is the where most of it, your income is not coming from your own efforts. And I think we lose sight of that sometimes in the agency space, and we treat it like an agency instead of like a business. So I would just encourage you, if you're on that journey, wherever you are on that cycle, that um, this has been such a cool experience to be able to get to the point where we're working on the business instead of in the business. And it takes a long time to get there, but it's worth it. And it's a really fun place to be. And you trade up skill sets, it's the redundancies go away, but the problems get bigger. And so if you like that, if that excites you, then you're in the right spot.
That's great advice to end this episode. What's your preferred social platform if people want to get a hold of you?
Man, I'm a LinkedIn guy and I'm a Instagram guy.
Awesome.
So my IG,
No, you don't have
my
to worry about
Instagram is
that. It's
on
in
my
the show
LinkedIn.
notes and
So
from that form you filled out. You don't have to waste your time throwing the handles in. People
love
look at the
that.
show notes and grab the social handles for Brett Young. And this has been a wonderful episode, man. Anytime we get to talk Stoic philosophy and team building and culture and impacting the lives of the people that choose to be on mission with us, I know it's a good one. So, Brett, thank you very much for giving us some of your valuable time and look forward to connecting with you in person later on this year, hopefully. I don't know who drew the short straw last year, but you definitely need to trade out with your buddies, and you get to come to Key West this time and make one of them stay back.
Amen to that, man. Well, I appreciate being on the show. Thank you so much.
Hey, this has been another episode of the Agency Freedom Podcast. Boys and girls, make it a great day. We'll talk to you again real soon. Y'all take care.